I've got Julie Horovich White. Julie, what can you tell me about 1979?
Well, I would have to say that the year was overwhelming and overwhelming from a positive, primarily positive perspective, and a little bit of the negative. And that just on. But I think the year overall, I would have to say was overwhelming in a positive way.
Experience.
Yeah. The overwhelming was, well, everything that we were doing, right? The uh, preparation for the trip. So being in a casino of that magnitude was just the first, and for me, and I assume for most, that it was just such a fascinating experience, an exciting one. Um, all of the hype getting ready, our matching outfits, like everything about that, it was just so overwhelming. And a big flight like that, I was terrified of flying. So there's a bit of the negative, but I wouldn't have changed it for anything. The performances, just being able to hear the audience's appreciation of what we were doing was profoundly overwhelming in an extremely positive way.
So, on the theme of what was so special about 1979, uh, most of, I'd say 99% of, or 95% of the people who went on the trip, this was their first trip to Ukraine. For many of them, it was their first trip to Europe, and some their first airplane ride. But I had been to Ukraine before, and I'd been there in 1974. And when I was there in 1974, Kiev in particular was extremely depressing. Lviv was a little bit better, but it was disheartening because it was dull, it was gray, it was Soviet, there was nothing but Russian left and right, Russian spoken, a Russian atmosphere. The sense of anything Ukrainian was virtually unseen. I mean, Lviv was a little bit better, but like I say, it was a dark, it was dingy, it was depressing, and it was like Vmadilo Ukraina. So I'm so glad that I got to go back in 1979 because 79 was so much different. In 1979, we saw the spirit and the energy and the nationalism in these performers with Videoka, that they were keeping the spirit alive. And with seeing some of the relatives, it really gave me a different perspective. And this time it changed to Shchendev Marlo Kriyana. There was still light. They had a spark. The diaspora had a spark. We told each other, we helped each other. That was 1979.
Here are some Scottish phrases for your Scottish knowledge and learning, and hopefully one day you can use them when you come to Scotland. First is the very common hod your wisht. Hod your wisht means close your mouth, don't say anything, hold your mouth. Your wisht is your mouth. Hod your wisht, close your mouth, don't say anything. Next is I write. Now if somebody says I write, you may be inclined to think they're agreeing with you. Wrong. We probably don't believe what you're saying. If you say something and we reply with I write, it means we think you're talking shit. Next is Peely Wally. Someone would say to you, you look a bit Peely Wally, or I'm feeling a bit Peely Wally, and it means that you're looking a bit pale or unwell or poorly. Often people think I'm Peely Wally, but I'm actually just pale all the time. Finally, it's you're a chancer. And what this means is that you are chancing your luck. You are essentially taking the pee and you're trying it on when you really shouldn't. So if somebody calls you a chancer, we're saying that you're kind of being quite naughty.
In Aberdeen, in the bar, crazy, I know, playing pool, drinking beer. Remember we played those guys who were speaking English and we could not understand them. And we had to have a translator to translate. And they at first were offended, I remember. And it was like, oh no, after a while they realized we couldn't understand their accent. So it was so heavy. But after we're heading home, there was Tom and Brian and myself. I think it was just the three of us. And we were on the bus trying to understand the culture over there. So, and as Tom has reminded me, like you're supposed to queue up when you're at the bus stop. Get in line, everybody, and we're just being like good old Canadian boys and getting a lot of dirty looks. So we're on the bus now, and our stop is coming up, and you have to press this button to let the driver know that you want to get off. But there's no audible sound of the bell. So we're pushing, we push again, another time, and people are looking at us like, what's going on? The bus driver stops, gets out of his chair, comes back to see us, and man, I can't remember for
You're gonna have to ring it more than once. You can get off the bus now.
You're gonna have to ring it more than once. And he kicked us off right then and there. And I thought we would get some sympathy from the old ladies that are on the bus. And I mean, get out! You know? They were very happy that we were thrown off the bus, you know, a few blocks from the university. It was just, it was an eye-opening culture shock day for us. So.
So I want to say it was 5, 6 in the morning, and it was one of our best performances the night before. I mean, place was packed. Anyways, you know how exhilarated you are. Coming down after a show is impossible. So Tom Brick and I had set up a bar where we would get, I can't remember the name of the lager, but it was Sweetheart Stout, cans of each, and we'd mix them in, and they were called black and tans.
Yeah.
And so these things rejuvenated all your electrolytes and rejuvenated a few other things. And so it wasn't until midnight or 1 o'clock that we were really kind of settled down now and ready to wander the halls and talk. And otherwise it was just, that was just sort of the coming down part of it. So by 4 or 5, there's a couple of us still awake and thinking, you know, we've got on our little to-do list, the fish market.
Crack of dawn.
The famous fish market there, right
You got to
there
be there, crack of dawn.
on the edge of North Sea.
Yeah.
But you've got to be there when the sun comes up to get all the action, because by 7, 8 o'clock, all the ships are reloaded, dumped, and gone. So we thought it would be a great idea. So it was Myron Petro, myself,
Smoke.
Randy Smook, and you can ask Bill. It was either Bill or Bo Stews. Okay. And we were still up. So, okay, away we go. So we go down to the fish market, and we had a ton of pictures. Because Smook brought his really sleek little camera. And the pictures that came out of that were phenomenal. So somehow we thought it would be a brilliant idea, instead of us shooting the boats, that someone get on the boat and shoot back at us.
Yes, art. This is art.
Exactly. So the drunkest of us was Smook, so we sent him out with his camera. And he's negotiating this very icy rope and chain. It was a rope that you held and a chain you walked on. And he barely made it out there and said, "Come on, Smook, hurry up."
Yeah.
He's risking his life. So he takes a couple of pictures. He doesn't even get in the picture, poor bugger. You know, he sacrificed himself to get out there. And just as he's about halfway back, he slips to grab one of them, and you could just see in slow motion the camera flying in the air. We watched it as it hit the cement dock, and the roll ended up in the North Sea. Under a whole bunch of salmon was the covering, the casing. It was in like 12 pieces. Yeah. And Smook is standing between the boat and the dock, tears in his eyes. It's like, "Smook, let's go. We got to get back."
Somebody else will take pictures.
So that was the fish market, and on the way back, somehow we ended up there was a bread truck, and they jumped out, and we jumped in and grabbed, because we hadn't eaten yet since the supper before, and I can't remember us getting back, but the fish market, I wish I could find pictures, because I know I've seen pictures that others took from there.
Yeah.
What a sight. I mean, people who have never been in a fish market, I'd never been in one before.
Yeah.
It was astonishing, but that's the fish market story.
Okay, so one of the rites of passage for new people, and actually it was a fairly new development. I don't think it kicked in until maybe about 1976, but suddenly it became an all-time thing that people needed to be initiated.
Right.
I recall there was a whole section in the Johnson Hall residence, and it was floor B2, and floor B2 was known as just the banshees of revenge and mischief, led by Joanne Rusalka.
Okay.
What was your experience with floor B2?
Well, I do remember at one point I was locked out of my own room, and I also found that my mattresses were no longer in my room.
Okay.
I believe that there was a certain king of the floor, a certain T. Luchak, who would request newbies like myself.
I request your presence.
You
That's
request
right.
your presence.
I would be in my room. I would not move from my bed with my bottle and Donna Babick and her crew and Joanne. I'd say, I want to see Brenda Gorlick. And they'd bring Brenda Garlic and they'd throw her on the bed. And so by the end of the day, we had a pile of like 20 people on the
Exactly.
bed.
So I was like the princess and the pea
Pretty
in reverse.
princess and the pea.
In reverse, with bodies, not mattresses. So I remember that quite.
So pretty innocent.
Yeah.
Pretty harmless.
Pretty innocent. And I do remember turning 21 on that trip. Now that was huge because I was legal everywhere in the world.
You and Randy Kohoch.
Yes, we are birthday buddies.
Okay.
And I was introduced to something called Wiederwasser. Am I saying that right?
What the heck?
Wiederwasser, white water, vodka.
Oh, vodka.
White water, Wiederwasser. And I'm drinking this white water.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a beautiful picture of me with my head down on the table and an empty bottle next to me. I'm pretty sure I was just asleep. I wasn't drunk.
No.
passed out.
No.
No, I was just relaxing.
Okay, and let's make something perfectly clear.
Yes.
Even though we, did have these parties and experiences, everybody always showed for rehearsals.
Right.
Everybody showed for performances.
Right.
Yeah, there was cardinal rules. If you're going to party.
Except for certain T. Luchaks from time to time.
Well, I would try my best to sometimes hide behind curtains and sleep during Brenda Gorlick's ballet warm-ups, but Brenda somehow always managed to find me. The only guy who ever missed a rehearsal was Randall J. Smook, and we tracked him down.
Okay, there
But
you go.
But that's the initiation.
That's the initiation. Good
Thank
times.
you.
So the story of Floor B2, there were 6 of us gals on this one wing called Floor B2. So we started naming a song, probably Taraz, Floor B2,
B2, floor B2, floor B2, floor B2.
And so we all had duty free. So anytime someone would say floor B2, we'd have a drink and sing
Floor B2, floor B2, floor B2, floor B2.
And Myron Petro and I think Bill Chibluk and maybe a couple other guys were taking bets which of the first girl was going to be the first one to leave and go into the room. Well, I was the first one. And thank God there was a lock on the door and a sink in the room.
End of story.
End of story. But my sister was drinking scotch, which I don't think she ever did. But anyway, she ended up, she couldn't speak English anymore. She just was straight Ukrainian.
Okay, so here with Eunice Eustachian from Euclid Avenue. So during the trip, this is a story that only people know this story will be Eunice Eustachian, Diana, and Teresa Kuzik. So this is a bit of a confession. So Floor B2 was on a bit of a rampage, and they were collecting people and banging on the door. And so I was in a room with Diana and Eunice, and there was this moral dilemma. I'm here with these 2 rookies who need to be initiated, and there's people banging on the door outside the door who want to initiate them. What do I do? I mean, I can't betray them. These are chicks. I can't go at the door. So what am I going to do? So I took the bed sheets, I tied them to the radiator, and you were either on the 3rd or 4th floor, and I rappelled down the side of the Johnson Hall. And so every time I got past the sheet, there'd be the knot, it would go, and then down to the next level. And so I was already down to the main floor. I think I was wearing dancing slippers. And Teresa Kuzik poked her head out the door, and she's looking at me, looked like Spider-Man hanging on the side of the building. And all she said was to my sister, "Oh, it's just your stupid brother." You don't remember this, Eunice?
I do remember that.
Okay,
story.
thank you.
I never got initiated either.
Well, because see, that's because I saved you from the mob that was outside the door.
Wherever you go, whether it's Asia or Australia, you want to come back with a boomerang or some sort of the local. And what we wanted, Brian, Lukey, and I were together walking the streets one day. We said, let's get ourselves like a nice tartan sweater.
Yeah, well, I was gonna buy a kilt, but they were just bloody expensive.
Oh, they right. The kilts were vicious.
So that was
because they're like formal wear.
Yeah.
For them, and they'll pay any money if it's their.
So no kilts. So no kilts.
Their clan, So we just wanted whatever sweater we could get, and we noticed one and said, "I like that one," and it was kind of black, red, and maybe very thin green lines, and those little details make the difference between the clans.
Yeah.
And the lady selling it at the boutique says, "Oh, you're a Fraser." And Brian, of course, is ready to take on it. He says, "Oh, of course we are." "Oh, okay." And she kind of became hesitant for a second and said, "Are you a good Fraser or a bad Fraser?" And I wasn't sure how to answer. And of course, Brian, as my lawyer, immediately said, "Oh no, we're good Frasers." And as she's folding it, she stops again and says, "Ha, you can't be." And I said, "No, we are. What do you mean we can't be?" And she says, "They all been shot off." I said, "By who?" "The bad Frasers, silly."
Are you a good Fraser? Are you a bad Fraser? You can't be a good Fraser. They've all been shot off.
It's the summer season, but the way it's been, it's a bloody monsoon. Ja, det rozumiem, що він до мене. As long as I'm aware, I don't understand.
In Scotland is each of the performing groups took turns doing a presentation. It was like a disco night, presentation night.
It's kind of a requirement.
Yeah. So we had to plan something, and Petruccio, take it from there.
Well, we had to, the group, but only one person volunteered to do it. I think I'm looking at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So everybody said, "Well, I'm too busy. I'm out, and I'll do it." And it was that night.
Yeah.
That night. And so people were off for the afternoon. And you and I had a couple of beverages because we'd done some work in the morning. And you started on this thing, and I thought I'd take a nap. And you said, if I happen to fall asleep, you're napping. Get me up at no later than like 3 or 4. So I'll have this done, and we'll take it from there. So okay, I come back to the room, and I think you and I had maybe 2-3 sips out of a bottle of scotch.
Yeah.
And so I come back. It's 4 o'clock. all the birds are coming back to roost and get ready and
For showtime.
because 7 o'clock we got to be there.
Yeah.
And some of them are asking me, so has Luchak got that thing done yet? We got to know what we're doing. And I said, oh, Luchak. I look, the bottle is empty and sideways. It's lying there. Your head is on your forearm, on some papers and pencils and junk and some Mars bars wrapped. So I'm trying to wake you up, and I said, Luchak, did you do any work on this thing? And you said, well, I thought I did. And I said, listen, we got to get started. And then I lifted your arm and I said, what is this? I started looking at this thing, and it's got breaks and choir and dance and include the Japanese group. This is genius. What is it? Oh yeah, no, I did work on it. Okay, yeah, I remember now. Okay, get all the guys, get the girls in red. And so
Here's the outfits, here's the music. We get Billy to play this, and then we come in and we do the other.
you know, it was like, some Hollywood producer had worked on it for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And it had all the little, but cost me the rest of that bottle though. And I think that the cabaret ended up being historic, right?
Yeah.
There's still stories, there's great footage, great pictures. And it's our own sort of goofy bus songs that we had the whole cabaret singing.
Yeah, first time we met, I thought you had buck teeth. Yeah, for sure.
So that was a classic, and that was that's actually how it was created.
There you go. That's the real story. The first time we met, I thought you had buck teeth. First time we met, I wanted to laugh. The first time we met, I thought you had buck teeth. First time we met was a buck and a half. See, where, oh where are you tonight? Why did you leave me here all alone? I searched the world over and thought I found true love. You met another and quack, you were gone. Quack, quack, you were gone. Quack, 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 you were gone. The record's stuck, the record's stuck, the record's stuck, the record's stuck.
We're in residence at the University of Aberdeen Johnson Hall. And in the hall there was a pub area. And it was the responsibility of each of the groups that was there to take a night to host a disco night. So when it was our night, of course, we had to choreograph a little plan. And it started by us coming in doing Tresinettes. And then we sang some songs. And then, what else are you going to do at a pub when you're having a party? You got to have Kolameka. So we had Kolameka. So we got it started, but then we started taking people, dancers, singers, out of the audience, getting our friends from around the world to join us. And I still have emblazoned in my memory this young Asian who had probably never seen a Ukrainian in his life until 10 days prior to this, doing Szczupake with his arms perfectly extended and shooting out foot after foot. It was unbelievable.
He'd been practicing after seeing us. Oi, take do night, do night, do night, oi, take do night, die now. Oi, take do night, do night, do night, oi, take do night, die now. Gino's East, how I love to taste your yeast. Lots of whiskey, lots of beer, no policemen coming here. Oi, take do night, do night, do night, oi, take do night, die now. Oi, take do night, die now. We're very lucky to have Yuvameta Kowalchuk join us as a guest performer. So she came to us with Scotland, and she brought a little friend of hers to keep her company. And but she went home after Scotland. But she also performed in the Winnipeg show as well. Yeah. So while she was there, a number of our guys were hovering around her like honeybees. I know Gary Kinishchik in particular, and Brian Lukey, and sometimes Don Solitsky. And afterwards, Luba became a famous rock star.
Luba.
As Luba. Right. And one of her first hits was Every Time I See Your Picture, I Cry. And so I think Kinishchik and Lukey both were convinced that the song was about them. Right? That every time I see your picture, I cry. But what Luba's version of it, no, that's written about her dad.
But those two guys to this day think that every time I see your picture I cry is about them. That's the Yuba
Let's
family.
not spoil it for them.
Let's not spoil it. Okay, Luke, the urban legend is that Yuba wrote the song "Every Time I See Your Picture I Cry," that she wrote it either about you or Gary Kinnistruk. And no one's going to take that away from you. Although she does say that she wrote it about her dad. But the fact of the matter is that you and the boys really welcomed her and Lassia.
And I think that's what we take from this is that they were on their own. The two of them were on their own, and Gary and I just somehow connected with them that way. Lassia Zinkel, of course, and even Kowalczyk, and yeah, we were escorts. How's that?
Right on.
We were escorts for them, and that's how, as far as probably I should take that.
Very chivalrous of you.
Yes.
There we go.